So hello guys, I'm Jeric L. Gampong and we are the group 3 and we discuss the step 1, establish goals and terms of preference. So ako yung unang mag-report sa aming tatlo guys. So yung itatakal ko is yung getting started hanggang sa decide operational question guys. So sana makinig kayo at intindihin nyo mabuti yung explanation namin about sa report namin guys. So thank you. So hello guys, I'm Jeric L. Gampong, Bus 2D student, and we are the group 3 and we tackle about the establishing goals in terms of reference. So guys, let's start. So first, getting started. Getting started. The planning efforts of launch by discussions between those who want the plan, land user, and government, and the planners. This crucial first step should be mutual exchange of ideas and information. So, getting started guys. Ito yung dapat mong malaman bago ka magplano ng iyong mga gagawin. Especially kapag magpapatayo ka ng isang farm. Dapat malaman mo muna yung mga information at mga ideas bago ka magsimula. Kaya nga, getting started. So, yun lang guys. So, next. The planning assignment. Planning assignment. The following tasks may be included in this first step of planning. Some of them will be reflected in more detail in step 3 and 4. So planning assignment guys, ito yung plano na may naka-assign na mga gagawin. Yung parang step by step guys. Dapat hindi lang isang tao ang naka-assign sa planong ito. So, yun ang planning assignment. May kanya-kanyang trabaho yung planning assignment. At may mga kanya-kanya silang mga gawain na naka-assign. So next, define the planning area. Determine the map, its location, size, boundaries, access, and centers of population. So yung define the area guys, ito yung dapat mong malaman na kung ano yung mga nandun sa area na yon, especially yung map at yung location ng area na pagtatayaon mo ng isang farm or whatever na gagawin mo. At yung mga kung yung hanggang saan yung nasasakupan ng area na yon. At yung population ng area. Kung marami bang maapektuhan na tao or mga puno na madadamay kapag nagtayo ka na ng isang business farm. So, yun lang guys. So, next is contact the people involved. So, before many decisions are taken, representatives of the farmers and other land users like to be affected by the plan should be contacted and their views obtained and serves two purposes. First, it provides the planning team with the inside view of the real situation. Second, it means that the land users are aware that exchange exchanges are being considered instead of being confronted with them subsequently as something imposed from above. Make sure that all groups of people are contacted, including women organizations, ethnic minorities, pastoralists, as well as cultivators. Particular attention should be given to way in which minorities depend on the resource, example through the collection of minor forest products. So yung contact the people involved, ito yung kan guys. Dapat kausapin mo muna yung mga tao dun sa area na yon. Especially yung mga farmers at mga minority sa lugar na yon, kung meron mang maapektuhan sa gagawin mong project. Dapat kausapin mo muna sila nang mabuti para sa ganon, kapag nagsimula na yung pagtatayo mo ng isang farm is wala nang aberya. Dahil bago ka magtayo ng farm, nakausap mo na yung mga tao na nandun sa isang lugar kung saan ka magtatayo ng farm kung sakali. Kaya dapat kausapin mo muna yung mga taong nandoon at involved sa lugar na yon bago ka magtayo ng farm. So next guys, acquire basic information about the area. So this is first stage of gathering information, which will be acquired in more detail in later step. It is needed at this point to establish what the plan intended to achieve. The kinds of information needed are outlined in the basic information about the area. So yung acquire basic information guys, yung acquire basic information about the area, ito yung unang stage ng pag-gather ng information na kinakailangan din sa pagtatayo ng isang farmland. At ito rin ay kailangan mong malaman bago ka magtayo ng isang farmland. So yun yung acquire basic information about the area. Kailangan mo lang malaman yung mga information about sa area na yon. So next, establish the goals. The goals may arise from local problems. Example, low crop yields, fodder shortage, or from national policy and development priorities. Sample crops for export at many particular level. The goals may have been derived from higher level, from national to district and local to lower levels by the amalgamation of local needs, top-down and bottom-up planning, respectively. List the problems of the area and the benefits, such distinguish between long-term goals and those that can be achieved in the planning. Before isolate those goals, higher level plan apply to the area and those that do not that do not. So yung establish the goals, guys, ito yung para sa akin, ito yung local problems na ng isang lugar. At kailangan mo rin itong malaman bago ka magtayo ng isang farm. At dapat planuhin mo tong mabuti. At kausapin mo rin yung mga national at district ng lugar na iyon. So yun yung establish the goals, guys. So next, identify the problem, opportunities. So illustrate the present land use situation. Identify the problem that the plan instead to tackle and opportunities for improve. So ito yung guys, yung identify the problem, opportunity, dapat yung land, ma-identify mo muna yung mga problema doon, tas itatakal mo para ma-improve yung lupa na yon bago mo tayuan ng isang farm kung sakali. Dapat alamin mo yung mga bagay-bagay sa lugar na yon at itakal mo to ng mabuti sa mga team mo or sa boss mo kung sakali para ito ay ma-improve. So next, identify constraints to implementation. So concentrate to the implementation of the proposed plan may be legal, economic, institutional, social, environment. The design of many intervention must explicitly recognize the capacity of government, other organizations, and land user to implement them. The resource available must be specified. So yung identify the constraints of implementation, guys, ito yung parang kakausapin mo yung government at mga organization at mga land user para maging maayos yung pagtatayo mo ng isang farmland. So yun lang, guys, yung identify constraints to implementation. I-implement mo yung mga gagawin mo, parang ganun. So next, establish the criteria by which land use decisions will be made. For example, the option chosen by may be the one which promise the highest return on investment, or the one which will sustain a greatest rural population where there are several critical decide on their relatives importance. So yung establish the criteria by which land use decision will be made. So ito yung guys, parang i-establish mo yung chosen area mo, tapos yung mga promises mo ng tatakal mo yung mga maaring mangyari sa pag-invest mo sa farm na yon. I-establish mo yung mga bagay-bagay sa lugar na yon, tas yung mga decision na gagawin mo. So yun yung establish the criteria by which land use decision will be made. So next, set the scope of the plan. How much this the plan supposed to cover? Will other plans still be in effect? For example, will road or other basic service is covered by the plan? So yung set the scope of land guys, kailangan mo tong gawin para sa yung plano. Halimbawa yung mga roads na dadaanan mo sa pagpunta sa lugar na yon na mako-cover ng plano mo. Kailangan mo tong malaman yung set the scope of the plan. Kailangan mong i-scope yung plano mo para pagdating ng panahon is alam mo na yung gagawin mo bago ka magtayo ng farm or building. So next, set the planning period. This is the length of time for which the plan will operate. It could be 3 to 5 years longer and may be broken down into place for revision. So yung set the planning period, ito yung guys, parang yung plano mo is matatapos sa ganitong taon, parang ganon. Dapat bago ka magplano is parang alam mo na yung kung anong taon matatapos yung plano mo. Yun yung set the planning period. Parang alam mo na kung kailan matatapos, tas para mapabilis yung mga trabado is kailangan mo nung set the planning period para maabot nila yung kung anong taon matatapos. So yun. Next, agree on the content and format of the plan. So what will the plan contain? How will it be presented? For example, will it include new crops, improves techniques of land management, extension service improvement in infrastructure or new legislation. The format depend on the people who have to be informed and involved. Identify the different groups of people contended. So yung agree on the content of the format plan, ito yung parang nag-a-agree na sila sa ginawa mong plano guys. Parang sumasang-ayon na sila sa ginawa mong plano. Na na-involve dito yung mga grupo ng tao sa lugar na yon, or yung parang yung isang kumpanya guys, parang uma-agree na sila sa yung nagawang plano. So last na i-report ko guys is yung decide operational question. This include the founding of the planning operation, the authority and organization of the team, facilitates operation, with other agencies, record keeping, and reporting arrangement, key people who can help or who need to be informed, and the plan production schedule. So yung decided operation question guys, ito yung parang magde-decide na yung team nyo kung kailan mag-ooperate yung itinayo nyong farm. Parang farm, kung depende sa inyo kung ano yung itinayo nyo sa lugar na yon. At ito, dito na rin dumarating yung magtatanong na yung mga team mo about sa mga bagay-bagay at yung mga agency at yung mga parang yung example is yung mga nagastos nyo kung okay na ba yung facilities, pwede na bang mag-operate, parang ganun. Parang magtatanong na sila sa'yo. So, yun lang yung report ko guys about sa establish goals and terms of reference. Tas yung basic information about area is i-discuss ni Eden Maris Pabros. Kasi guys, naghati-hati kami sa report namin ito. 4 sana kasi kami kaso nag-drop na yata si Steve Garcia. So, bali 3 na lang kami, guys. So, I hope na may natutunan kayo sa report ko. Kung kulang man yung explanation ko, guys, is pwede nyo namang balikan yung GCR, tas nandun yung about sa report namin. Pwede nyo siyang basahin, tas i-analyze nyo lang kung may mga pagkukulang man kami sa aming report. Tas intindihin nyo na rin kung kulang pa rin yung pag-explain namin sa inyo. So, yun lang guys yung report ko. So, I hope may naintindihan kayo kahit papaano. So, yun lang.
Next is the basic information about the area. So, to get started, the planning team will need some basic information about the land, the people, and the organization of administration and services. This information will be obtained in more detail in the analysis of problems in Step 3. In Step 1, the planner must find out what is available and where to get it, and must identify the people who can serve as contacts between the planning team, specialist agencies, and the local community. The planners must also find out which essential data are not available, so that surveys can be scheduled and cost. The range of the information and amount of detail needed will vary according to the level of planning. So, the following are examples of information that may be required. First is the land resources. So, when we say land resources, it talks about the climate, hydrology, geology, landforms, soils, vegetations, including forest and pasture resources, fauna, pests, and diseases. Sources includes topographic base maps, air photographs, and satellite imagery, existing surveys, and departmental records. Next is present land use. These talk about the service and departmental records of land use, farming systems, forestry, production levels, and trends. The present infrastructure. It talks about the transport, communication, and services to agriculture, livestock management, and forestry. So, next is population. It talks about the numbers, demographic trends, location settlements, role of women, ethnic groups, class structure, and leaderships. Land tenure. It talks about the legal and traditional ownership and user rights for land, trees, and grazing, such as forest reserves and national parks. Social structure and traditional practices. Land use is tied up with the history and culture of the people and has usually evolved over a long period. Understanding the present situation is a prerequisite for devising improvements. Government, administrative structure and key authorities, services provided and demands placed upon them. Ask representatives of various agencies active in the area to brief the planning team. Legislation, laws and regulations that affect land use, traditional law and custom, whether laws are enforced. Next is non-governmental organizations or NGOs. So find out about NGOs in the planning area. And lastly, commercial organizations. So contact any commercial organizations, just like for example, mining companies whose interests may be affected.
Terms of reference and budget. To get started, the planning team will need some basic information about the land, the people, and the organization of administration and services. This information will be obtained in more detail in the analysis problem in step. In step 1 is the foundation of the land use plan. Misconceptions arising at this stage may be difficult to clear up later. In particular, it is essential to develop close working relationships between the land users and decision makers, the planning team, and other participants of the planning process. A major requirement of this step is to identify the main components of the planning project. From this, the terms of reference should be defined broadly enough to allow flexibility in fixing solutions to the land use problems, identified while staying within the limits of the time and resources available. The output from this step will be a project document or similar statement giving the term of reference a planning exercises including its goals, specific objectives, time required, and the necessarily budget. Checklist Step 1. Goals and terms of reference. Responsibility. Decision makers and planners together. First, you may define the planning area. Contact the people involved. Acquire basic information about the area. Land resources, present land use, infrastructure, population, land tenure, social structure, government, NGOs, commercial organization. Establish the goals. Next, make a preliminary identification of problems and opportunities. Identify constraints to implementing improvements. Establish the criteria for making decisions on land use. Set the scope of the plan. Set the planning period. Agree on the content and format of the plan. Decide on operational question for the planning project, personnel, cooperating agency, timing, and budget.
Why you always in the mood? Fuck around like I'm brand new. I ain't tryna tell you what to do, but try to play cool. Baby, I ain't playing by your rules.